You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. I'll share with you some of the messages that you have brought to us as far as the two matters we have discussed are concerned. Okay, so where do I begin? Kofi Bento says, it's about quality control from ground up, not at the law school level alone. So echoing the point that Inus Afuseni did mention. He says, Russia produces very few vehicles. Germany produces millions of cars. Germany, the mass producer, produces the best quality vehicles. What an example. And then one of the students who just passed, and it will be called to the bar, says that they just did not want to admit, and this is because in our year, we, those who got 50% and above, were few, and the pass mark came down to 45%. Thanks for your message. And a senior at the bar also says, I don't know why, you know, there's something about this thing and too many people will not want to be identified. So when you hear Inus Afuseni, you hear Coup Asare and the rest, they are really bold and brave because too many don't want to be heard about it. When you hear Isankuma and the rest of them talking very boldly about it and publicly, it is because that is what they are made of. Now, this is asking the question that the Attorney General, do you know there are not more than 5? You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. Here are my guests for this morning's edition of Newsfile. He's back with the documents. But today, those of us who were here earlier and saw the documents come in before himself, we made the judgment that the documents have reduced. Yes, even though there is another load stacked in 2 or 3 bags behind this very place. Okay, so he's back. Abdel Malik Kwekobako, Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Thank you very much. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you, man.
Great, great. We really missed you, and I was put through the usual ritual of the pressure of answering questions. Where is Kweku? And yet, I do announce here publicly that Kweku is taking his break, and yet all the time, people kept asking. Thank you for coming. Now, also here in the studio is Inus Afuseni, the Honorable MP for Tamale Central. Thanks for making the time to join us also.
Thank you.
We haven't had you in a while.
Thank you, Samson.
Great, great, great. He's one of the advocates for quote-unquote mass production of lawyers, which the CJ is obviously against. Also here in the studio, Colonel retired Festus Abuaje, author and conflict analyst. And anytime I introduce him, I invite you to take a look at his books, Indigenous African Warfare, Its Concepts and Art in the Gold Coast, Asante and the Northern Territories, up to the early 1900s. Festus B. Abuaje with Forward by Professor A.B. Senso. Also, he has authored ECOMOG, a sub-regional experience in conflict resolution, management and peacekeeping in Liberia. And this is the 2nd edition. Kokubako loves this particular one because he likes to read it as well. Thank you very much for making time to join us in the studio. Also here is Joseph Dindiok Penka, the Honorable MP for Timpani and Deputy Attorney General happens also to be on that body that has received not too much of good news for quite a while now because of the mass failures at the law school, particularly the entrance exams. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. So we'll get to action right away, and we will quickly, briefly, because the consensus is that we are tired and fatigued discussing the law school situation. So we'll deal with it very briefly and then move on to questions of allegations of coup plotting and white paper on Yawaso and understanding the regret for the Ajawan deportation. But before we start, let's get to listen to these two clips. The Chief Justice has something to say about the lawyers like Inusa Fuseni and myself, Kofi Bento, and the Chief Advocate from afar, Professor Stephen Kwekuaza, asking for quote-unquote mass production of lawyers. She had a word for all of those advocates very recently, about 3 months ago, at a meeting with lawyers and judges. Let's hear her.
I'm very sad to say that increasingly those of us who have been too long on the General Legal Council, those of us who spent too long on the disciplinary committee, we have cause to worry because the kind of misconduct are such that there's no way anybody envisaged these categories of misconduct when the Legal Profession Act was even being enacted in the 1960s. In those days, there were, 30-something lawyers. Now, they're coming out of the woodworks. Let us be very careful. And those of you lawyers and those of you lecturers who are busy advocating free-scale, mass admissions into professional law course, mass production of professional lawyers, be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for. So long as I have anything to do with it, it won't happen. Because just like you cannot mass produce doctors and surgeons, you must not, Ghana must not have mass-produced lawyers imposed on them. If people want to do their own law practice, they can go on the internet. The members of the public can go on the internet and turn themselves into lawyers if they want to, for their own purpose.
Okay, so my guests are laughing, particularly about the very final comment that members of the public who want to be lawyers can go on the internet and become lawyers. What she was saying, effectively, is that that's not the way to become a lawyer. You can get all the information you need on law on the internet. It will never make you a lawyer. All right. But this criticism was not only to the few lawyers and other advocates who are asking for an expansion, opening up of the place. It was also to those who are actually training the LLB students. To Ansar Sari, the former director of the Ghana School of Law itself, and of course to the rector of the GIMPA, who spoke recently also about what he thought could be done. Listen to the rector of GIMPA, Professor Philip Ebo Bonzi Simpson.
The country needs magistrates and circuit court judges and justices across board. They need to be trained from the legal sector. Each municipal, metropolitan, and district assembly requires a full-blown legal department of no less than 10 well-trained lawyers. the Attorney General's Department, even prosecutions alone, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution and his staff can take the entire group of lawyers required in this country. In many American, Canadian, and European jurisdictions, some law firms with their global branches exceed 500, the full complement of people graduated from the Ghana School of Law. I am respectfully submitting that if we do a proper needs assessment, we will come to the conclusion that between ministries, departments and agencies, district, metropolitan and municipal assemblies, the judicial system and its courts, and of course private legal practitioners, as well as the parastatal state enterprises, there are far many more people who are required for the legal sector. And if we then do this study, it will lead us to two. If the Ghana School of Law is not presently able to handle the numbers, the people who train, the people who go out to train, the people who come to train as lawyers can train at a professional legal education. In other words, Mr. Chairman, the General Legal Council can partner with and accredit some law schools to offer the delivery of professional legal.
All right. Maybe I start with Inus of Seni.
Yes.
Of course, we know your views about this. Your views are the same as
Bonzi Simpson.
Bonzi Simpson, Professor Stephen Kwasari,
Yes.
and as the platform of the CDD,
Yes.
because it's issued a position on it,
Yes.
and all the others. Why do you think that the CJ thinks all of you, the kind of advocacy you are making, is dangerous and ought not be considered?
The CJ simply got it wrong. Simply got it wrong. And still steeped in the colonial mentality of a favored profession where entry must be restricted. That's the thinking of the CJ. But thankfully, she's just an administrator, and she'll go next year. She'll go next year. And I shudder to think of an administrator who is not amenable to change. It's very dangerous. I mean, she's not an elected person. She's an administrator. And look at how she forcefully made her points.
She just came in.
Yes,
This problem has been with us for
But I'm saying that
at a
so
crisis point for almost a decade now.
Lawyers are accustomed to dealing with issues. What are the issues? The issue is we want, no, it's not, there are not even issues. The issues, we want quality, effective, efficient lawyers to service their clientele. So it's about quality. So how do you solve the issue? You think mass production cannot solve the issue? It can. Quality control measure should not only be at the top. What we are having now is that we are trying to ensure quality control at the top. So we've gotten the strategy wrong. Even in the old days past, at Lego, before you gain entry into the Faculty of Law, Deputy Attorney General, you had to hit a pass mark of 6, between 8 and 6. That was a process of assuring quality. They selected the best and the brightest. In the Faculty of Law, you had to make the first 40, or you are lucky to be among the second 20 to remain at the Faculty of Law. But they took more than 100. That was quality control. But even with that, with best students selected into the law school, with 7 of the students after the first year, some people still came out with 3rd class. Some people came out with passes. So it meant that even when you are able to select, students themselves must demonstrate a commitment to their studies, must work hard, and must persevere. If not, they will still fail. Simply put, all we are saying is that all the courses that are being taught at the School of Law are teachable courses. They can be taught at any faculty.
At the School of Law, it's practice and procedure.
Practice and procedure.
It is at LLB that you are taught, what is it?
Well, practice and procedure.
Teaching.
Civil procedure, what is it? Is it not our drafting? Civil procedure. Is not our drafting? Land law, part of it is drafting. Okay, that's the practice. How to draft a writ of summons. You mean that cannot be taught at the faculty? It can. It can. And that's what we are saying, that one, first of all, let's all agree that we want quality lawyers. And if we so do, we must assure quality control from the beginning of the process, not at the end of the process. So yes.
At the School of Law, you have superior court judges, particularly often in the Supreme Court, who are providing supervision, even for the lecturers. How are you going to get that if you allow all these over a dozen, universities now teaching now to do it?
That's the fallacy of the situation. Even with the judges providing supervision, we still record mass failures. Not so. They provide supervision, but we record mass failures. It means that something is fundamentally wrong. What I'm simply saying is that we can reform the system. The system needs radical reforms. And that I still hold the view that mass production of lawyers is not inconsistent with assuring quality control. They're not mutually exclusive. That's what we must all know.
Why do you want to take a path not traversed by the best that we know of? As far as we know by standard, UK, the US is a bit loosed. Is that how they do what you are proposing?
Even Nkrumah had not taken a path not traversed by others, we will not have a law school. You know, in 1958, when Nkrumah established the law school, what they said about the law school? Those lawyers who trained at the Ghana Law School were of lesser caliber. That was the general refrain. In 1968, in 1963, only 9 students passed out of the law school and were called to the bar. Why was it that the law school itself introduced part 1 and part 2?
Only 9 of how many students you mentioned?
Those who got admission into the law school. Now, why did the law school introduce part 1, part 2? Because they had built a facility, they had built a law school. Their main source of supply of lawyers for training was University of Ghana, Legon. Legon could only produce 60 at most students. So they needed to occupy the space. So they started part 1 and part 2. We called it then Bakola. The simple reason why they canceled that program is that they did not no longer have space. That's a simple reason. Now, I'm saying that, so you have a strategy. You have only one higher institution providing a source, your feed to the law school. Now you have many institutions, and you still use the same strategy to solve that problem. Repeated mistakes has not been considered as experience. Are we not getting some experience from this? I believe seriously, and I will say it again, that look, General Legal Council must divorce itself from the provision of legal education and concentrate on regulation. Regulate the legal education. Ensure that faculties or institutions that want to train people for the legal profession have adequate faculty. Faculty, number 1. Facilities, number 2. And environment, number 3. Because there are students now who sit for law and even make an upper without seeing a well-furnished library. There are students who go for training as lawyers, LLB, part-time. And there are students, and Chief Justice is right, who study the law on the internet. So yes, so it's about how do you ensure that you have the facilities in the universities?
Emphasis is quality control, and she says it's also about character, and that she has sat at the regulator for a long time enough to know that if you were in her shoes, the last thing you will advocate is mass production, because the complaints that come in about the misconduct is just too much, and the profession is much about character than it is about what you learn. She spoke about lawyers and good lawyers, and we need good lawyers.
Sami, the character of a person is an evolving trait. It evolves. No one can say that when you were in you might have a general character, but it evolves. That character might be susceptible to some temptations as you evolve. That is why, as a regulator, continuing monitoring and supervising the delivery of legal education and the practice of the profession is important.
Okay.
That's why it's important. So you can use character of a person. I remember when we were at the faculty, a student wore jeans at the faculty, and Professor Mensah Bosu invited the student to the office and asked whether he was interested in becoming a lawyer. That was the communication, and the student understood.
Right.
So, and as teachers, apart from impacting knowledge, you mold character.
All right. In fact, when you are entering, I suppose even at your time, you signed the document requiring you to be of a certain character, otherwise you'll be in trouble.
And you have someone to stand for you as well.
Okay.
Surety.
They still do. People have to guarantee.
Yes.
Now, Kweku, I don't know. What's your, and I understand where you are coming from. Before we started, I heard your comments. What's your street view of what is going on? People say, for a situation that has become like the norm, the default, rather than the exception. We're told that in 72, 73, thereabouts, Kweku Ansah tells us of a certain huge failure that happened. But that was not the entry. That was those writing to be qualified to be called lawyers. Of course, it does still happen. We go in, our time we went in 200, and then by the time we are getting called, you have 100 and maybe a quarter is being left behind, and so on and so forth. And there are people who may have been sitting there for about 5 years, and they are never, getting out of the place.
First World War, Second World War, Third World War.
So the problem is entry, and after you enter, how to exit also becomes an issue for many people. But people say, for as long as it's becoming the default and not the exception, the leaders, the managers also have themselves to blame. How does it happen that 1,820 or 22 students who have passed their law LLB exams write an entrance exams and only 128 pass? They say that is a commentary on the management and the leadership of the place. What do you say?
More so. Yes, I would vote for laying the emphasis there. Okay? But I was listening to the CJ.
Right.
I think she's too conservative.
But it's a conservative profession.
Oh, it's a profession that must grow with society and be in touch with the modern times. Why do we have so many people seeking to do law? In 1958, we were about 4 or 5 million. Today, we are supposed to be about 30 or so million. We've opened up the space for education on all levels.
Right.
And indeed, as the economy expands, you would need the legal dimension to it. So it's obvious that we must open up the space. I'm not saying that just open it anyhow. I've been reading law, studying law, reading law books and things from the street corner. I will never become a lawyer. So I would not go to the internet to seek to be a lawyer there. I think we must open up our minds the philosophy the Chief Justice is pushing forward is very conservative. It's not going to help this country. An expanding modern society. It is never going to happen.
The philosophy the two of you have problems with, received a rousing applause from the lawyers who were in that auditorium.
I was surprised.
And the judges who were there.
I was surprised. And I wanted to have a clip of those who were clapping to know exactly who they were and what they are and where they come from. Something is wrong with the system. Systemic problem, failure somewhere along the line. We are refusing to understand it. I've been following Professor Azar over a long period. He's such a dedicated patriot. He's taking this up as if it's his baby. And he's right. I think it's about time we get a national conversation going and find ways and means of, please reform the system. The CJ, I'm sure she's talking from good, a sincere point of view, but she's wrong.
Okay.
Sincerity is not a substitute for science when it comes to dealing with such challenges.
So let's hear from the Deputy Attorney General, then we'll come to Professor Sagwaji here. And Pamka, the fact that you had such a unanimous, welcome of those statements clearly meant that the CJ is not alone in thinking the way she thinks, right? Why is it that you, at the General Legal Counsel, you at the Attorney General, you in the government at the helm of affairs, think that mass production of lawyers is going to be a danger to society?
Well, thank you very much, Samson. Thanks to your dedicated media platform for this opportunity. First, let me make this point very clear. I've heard the two have made very, very interesting discussions on this particular matter. But let me make this clear. The CJ is the chairperson of the General Legal Counsel.
Yes.
But the CJ is not an examiner. She doesn't mark scripts. She doesn't set questions.
Yes.
I want us to put things in perspective.
I think that's
you may be thinking about what she has said.
It's a notorious fact.
What she has said in respect of mass production. And you can put all the type of meanings you want to ascribe to it. But the fundamental thing is whether or not she has the capacity to directly interfere with mass production of lawyers if the people are capable.
If which people are capable?
The students are capable
if
of
you are
coming
running
out
the institution and you say by policy, for as long as I remain the head of this institution, forget it. You are telling me that down there, somebody can act contrary to that instruction?
No, that's a very interesting one. And that's why I understand you. And, I recall that privately, I've had discussions with you about this matter. But my take on this matter...
I've written publicly about this matter. I'm tired.
The point is this. You see, for example, next week, we are going to call about 300 and plus lawyers to the bar next week.
306.
I think 306 of them. Yeah. We are going to call them to the bar next week. Now, if you look at the numbers of persons who have repeated and those 128 that are coming to our, you're going to have in excess of about 400 again, even in the first year, even though 128 are coming on board.
And we still will have just about 4,000 lawyers around the entire country in practice. In practice.
Yes.
And out of that number, the statistics say that almost 90% will stay in Accra. Your boss said she was looking for lawyers. She mentioned Iyoko as an example. And she can't get a quarter of what she needs for the full complement to allow your your very important institution of the Attorney General's Department to function to full capacity?
Of course, I have made it very clear and categorical on this platform that, for example, last year, we asked for 200 lawyers, and then clearance was given for 50. Out of 200, we just got a quarter of what we asked for. And this year, we asked for another 200. Clearance has not yet been given, and we're going to recruit. But Samson, I think we should discuss what CJ has said against the backdrop.
Where are you going to recruit from?
Because, I mean, there are lawyers in the system. But are you saying that the answer to what we are looking for is mass production?
I'm not saying. I only ask questions.
You see, I agree. I want us to understand, first of all, fundamentally, what is mass production itself? And should it be delinked from quality?
No.
That's why I listened carefully to you, and I like the way you went about it. Yeah. The Honorable Yunus Husseini. He's saying that, yes,
I'm sure
we can
nobody
engage.
has missed the point of quality in talking about mass production. So can we keep the debate there?
Language was mass production. Who introduced it?
No, the mass production was introduced by CJ.
A distortion of what people are asking.
Absolutely. You see, but this mass production issue that we're talking about, as I said, I mean, you said that it's beyond debate now as to whether or not this one should be backed by quality and etc. And so everybody's talking about the fact that we need to produce quality lawyers in the system, and that it is not necessarily the case that if we have fewer, then we are going to have quality. That we can have people in their large numbers and yet have quality by raising the standards and all that. I'm not debating that. But Samson, let's also tune our mind to something which fundamentally we haven't looked at. The facility myself and you used at the law school to become lawyers, has it been expanded?
No.
Fundamentally, the emphatic answer is that it has never been expanded.
That facility at Makola has not been expanded,
yes,
but it has received campuses in Gimpa and also on KNUST.
That is true.
It is the reason last year they were able to take as many as 467
yes,
to enter.
Yes.
Why can't we have the same
Let
number?
me give you an example. Look, and this one, I know that, I mean, it's not any secret, so I have to share it with you. As a member of the General Legal Council, we anticipated that this year we're going to have larger numbers. So we put in place measures to ensure that we're able to accommodate them. So we went to UPSA to look for a bigger auditorium in anticipation of the larger numbers that were going to come in. Okay? We went to another private university, I've forgotten the name, to make checks, to find an auditorium. We made alternative arrangements in anticipation of the fact that we could have had about 1,000 or more. So we did. And we got some of the facilities. But the results turned out that we didn't need those facilities. So it means that we by deliberate plan, we anticipated larger numbers. You know. And so it was even a committee that was put in place, led by no less a person than the revered and respected Jones Doche, JSC himself. That did the recommendation, and then we agreed with them that we're going to have bigger facilities in anticipation of the numbers that we're going to be churned out. Then it turns out that the IEC brings us the results, and out of 1,800 plus, 128 are able to make it.
IEC is the Independent Examination Committee.
Exactly. Okay. And that one too is presided over by a very respected former Supreme Court Justice. And then a former chairman of the Ghana Bar Association, a president of the Ghana Bar Association is also a member. In fact, it is made up of very astute personalities.
What are you saying? That we are stuck? That, as I have become aware, and you have confirmed just this morning,
yes,
that you got expanded facilities for the Gimpa campus, and you got expanded facilities for the KNUST campus in anticipation of even bigger numbers for this year.
Yes.
Unfortunately, they went to write the exam and you were presented with only 128.
Exactly.
Therefore, all those spaces, you won't proceed with them anymore.
Because the exam results is telling us that these are the numbers that passed. And we cannot, as a General Legal Counsel, say that examiners go back and remark the scripts and bring us this number. You know we can't do that. We can't do that. Because you see, you make do with the result. If it had come out and then we had it that about 1,000 people passed, we may not be debating the issue now. But again, let's look at the other professions. what pertains there? The medical profession, for example, the accountants, the marketing officers. What pertains there? Do we want to replicate that in the legal profession? If we think that we should replicate that, that is what the debates will be geared towards doing. But I don't want us to be creating the impression, the discussion as though somebody has committed a wrong.
But what the CJ
when
is
128 students have passed,
what the CJ is talking about, when medical doctors who don't know their acts, who have been poorly prepared, kill people, they get punished, or they don't even kill people, but they give wrong prognosis or diagnosis, they get punished.
Sure.
When a lawyer, even for overestimating their fees, lose their license for as many as 3 years. Recently, we saw the bans.
Yes.
Some lose the right to practice forever.
Yes.
They can't practice. After so many years of, study and expense,
that's true.
They lose it completely. So what's the problem? The systems are there to check.
Yeah.
What's the fear?
I've indicated that, yes, it's true the systems are there to check. But you see, there must be a criteria for determining who goes to the law school, for so long as we haven't changed what is the system now. So I think what we should be advocating, all of us, should be to change the current situation where, by law, people are to write an entrance exam to go to the law school. This is now law. This particular thing we're talking about is law. We made the necessary statutory changes to accommodate that. And that followed what you rightly put up in your intro, the respected professor. Yes, when he went to the Supreme Court, and that was one of the most interesting judgments that all of us haven't examined critically, that the General Legal Council is made up of some judges of the Supreme Court who take decisions, and their decisions were challenged, and some of them participated in it and declared that their own conduct was unlawful. I think we're making strides.
But substantively,
yes.
Substantively, when you look at the judgment, what did they get really?
Of course, it is what led to the reform.
What did the people who went to the court, what did they really get?
Amending the LI to allow for the entrance exam to be legitimized.
Yes.
Was that the solution?
You see, at every point in time, there must just be a criteria for determining how somebody becomes a lawyer.
Okay.
There must be. And it is one of the ways. You see, if we think that a particular law is unconscionable and all that, and want to change it, the processes are there for us to. But I don't want us to, because of CJ's pronouncement, then I saw that my respected elder brother was very emphatic and he was very angry. And indeed, he took on the chairperson of the General Legal Council. But those were her personal views, okay, that she espoused. And she did so publicly.
She says, for as long as I am here, forget it. That's not personal views. That's policy.
And you see, the Honorable Yusuf Husseini made a statement that CJ will be going.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And you talked about next year. Yeah. That is not even my understanding.
As if there's a guarantee that...
You talked about next year. That's not my understanding. It may be earlier.
Yes.
Maybe earlier, yeah.
Yes. But the most important thing is that, are we saying that because of that one person, what that pronouncement she made, then everybody will have to bow to it?
Oh, but you heard me asking, how long has this CJ been there? Yes. Only 2 years or so.
And the
problem has been like a decade as a crisis.
Yeah. She came to meet this. So I know of her, Samson, and I want to make this very clear.
Yes.
I have had several interactions, even yesterday, very lively one-on-one discussion with her. She's very, very strict. She's strict. If you say the pass mark is 30 and somebody gets 29, 29 is not 30.
Okay.
That's it.
Has this become one of your problems? that may be my final question to you. Has this become because of the amendments that happened? Previously, they would do the entrance exams and they would do interviews.
That's so.
Now, what some of us got to know was that you get the 50 mark pass.
Yes.
And those who got 50, those who got, say, 49, 48, would all be invited to the interviews.
Yes.
And there were situations where you had 49 a number of people who got 49, a number of people who got 48.
Yes.
Some even got 49 and half, and they would have failed. But through the interview, they could come in.
Yes.
Now, by the amendment, the interview has been removed. Are you now saying you are stuck with this 128 and you can't do anything about potentially a good number who may have gotten 49, 48, and so on?
No, you go into the whole game with rules. So you set out to say that if you get this mark, you have passed. Then people have written the exam, some have passed. Then you now say that, okay, let's lower the mark, contrary to what you yourself had said for yourself. I think we can't do that.
Okay.
Otherwise, we may never end at anything. But something just critically important is the fact that I want all of us, in doing this debate, not divorce it from the fact that we need regulations to govern it. And that we cannot open up everything to ensure that anybody who wants to become a lawyer becomes a lawyer. It has never happened anywhere. Not all those who want to become teachers have ever been teachers anyway.
Okay.
Not all those who want to become medical doctors have ever become medical doctors. There must be some level of criteria set out to ensure that people who are able to go through the process I can tell you that we may have gone through a conservative process, but as you have rightly pointed out, did it begin with the current CJ?
Okay.
It did not begin with the current CJ. Samson, you recall that at our time, we did not need to write any exam.
No.
But even the interview bit you are talking about, I was excited that was taken out. And I'll tell you why.
But by our times, there were quotas that were being used even.
Yes.
So,
and the faculties were giving quotas.
Exactly.
And then if you passed, you came in automatically. You didn't write any exam. But the interview bit, you know, when it was taken out, I applauded it. You know the reason? People go to write exam. And then you have some performing so well. But you know, at the interview level, discretion comes in. So you may have a person who got 70% going for the interview and not making it, and somebody got 49 and passing through the interview, whether by merit or whatever it is. You know, so for example, maybe, I'm not saying that anybody influenced anything, but it was subject to human error. But now we've taken that out. You see, the amendments we did to take out the interview, that's progress. If the next step we want to take is that let's abolish the entrance exam altogether, that will be another debate. You
said taking out the interview is a progress.
Yeah, it was a progress that we made.
Okay.
Because
it was progress, but now that is affecting the situation. Because earlier, if I didn't get 50 and I got, say, like I have illustrated, I would have opportunity of an interview and I may be qualified through the interview. You could have used that room to now shore up the numbers, get the needed numbers you required. But the MPs insisted that you remove that, and you removed it.
No, we haven't said that by virtue of the interview, the pass mark was lower. I don't think that's a debate.
That's not what I'm saying.
No, the debate is not that by virtue of the interview, we lowered the mark, and now that we've taken the interview out, we've upped it. That's not the debate at all. Because the pass mark remains a pass mark. Okay. That if you get a particular benchmark, then you've crossed the line, and then you gain automatic entry. You don't need to go through interview, except as we are now about to look at if you have a criminal conviction and etc. And then even though you've qualified, we will not permit you to go through the process. Right. You know. So, but I can understand the passion with which the advocates are actually making.
What's the solution going forward for those? The backlog. We are told there's a backlog of in excess of how much?
I'm a member of the General Legal Council. But yes. I want to make this as my personal opinion. It is not the opinion of General Legal Council. My opinion is that going forward, as a nation, we should open up the system. Thank you. Yeah. That's my personal opinion.
There's a demonstration happening on Monday, and that's the
I mean by opening up the system.
Open up legal education.
This is what I mean. One, that we should try and replicate what happens in other professional areas. For example, CA and ACCA. Go find your tuition anywhere. Under the sea, in the air, wherever. Then the regulatory body will conduct the exam. If you pass, and you go through all the criteria, like you have good moral standing, and then etc., you are not having any criminal convictions, you are called to the bar.
The advocates have said this over the years.
Because the reason I'm saying this is that
petitions upon petitions.
We may, if we start expanding the facilities at the law school, we may expand it forever. Because the population will continue to grow.
Okay.
We may expand it forever. And
why do you think they won't listen to your view you have just expressed?
You know, I'm not saying they won't listen. You know, as time goes on and then the advocacy increases and the pressure is mounted, by all means, people will have to control. I mean, it will eventually become a unanimous decision of the nation.
Okay.
And if any one person stands in the way of that, you know what will happen? A tsunami.
Okay.
You know, so I believe that with time, if the advocacy increases,
all right.
We will have to.
By the law, by
yes.
the same law you are working with,
yes.
Section 1.5,
yes.
the Attorney General has power to give directions, and the General Legal Counsel is supposed to comply with those directions. Is she not?
Policy, or matters of policy.
Is she not in a position to say that, given the backlog of we are told about, is it 4,000 plus who are sitting at home, having passed their exams, can't do anything. Some are going elsewhere, other countries, to pay so much and come back and qualify through the post-call. Can she say, let's create a special dispensation for now, at least for the expanded facilities that you have created for this year, to absorb at least 1,000? Can she do that?
Well, but if the 1,000 haven't passed the exam, what do we do? You see, that is the fundamental question.
No, the thing is that you have the quality. You have the quality. They are first-class students who have failed as a result of this test.
Yes, that is
and
true.
we know this test may not be the best way to examine a student who have gone through how many years of LLB training.
That is the law now, isn't it? However unconscionable it is, that's the law.
Okay.
So until changes are made to this provision, then we cannot do anything.
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying if the advocacy increases, and then there's a unanimous decision or a near unanimous decision by all of us, the processes will go through and then it goes back to Parliament. I remember, and let me say this. Yeah. I remember, I mean, we are very, very good friends in Parliament, myself and my senior here. And he was very, very strong when this thing came to Parliament.
Yeah. They actually opposed.
In fact, he was one of the strongest voices on the floor as far as this issue was concerned. But in the end, you see, even people who are in Parliament and studying law took part in the decision.
Okay.
So please, we should take it one at a time.
All right,
and
thank you.
We'll definitely get there.
Thank you, but we're looking for the solution now and also in future. Now, I believe he's a good lawyer. That he has even qualified to be a deputy attorney general.
He's a good lawyer.
But I dare say, if he had to go through this system, if I had to go through this system, maybe I would not have been a lawyer.
That's right.
What should be done? Solutions.
Before I come to the solutions, let me speak as a lay person. In my 30 or so years in the Ghana Army, I spent a greater part of it either as a trainer, instructor, directing staff, or as a staff of the training department at Army HQ. So training, learning, teaching is one environment that has many characteristics that are common without reference to whatever the discipline is. For instance, we have studied military history to know that the best cadets who pass out from military academies don't necessarily become the best generals. And we have the example of General Horrocks, who was going to be dismissed from Sandhurst, and I think the Second World War broke out. So they said, let Horrocks, horrible Horrocks, go and die in the war. General Horrocks became one of the best British generals. So examinations per se are not the best way of assessing anybody's, competence and so. My issue is that the issue is about so long as I have anything to do with it, it will not happen. The logic of this statement is that the CJ has something to do with it, even if she's not marking papers and setting questions. And therefore, at the policy level, she is able to influence situations. And I think all of you have brought out a number of dimensions of this debate. That deliberately restrictions, impediments, obstacles, barriers are being placed in that process to try and restrict either the entrance and, or as you've said, the exit. And that betrayal of that idea comes out clearly that on radio I've heard many people say that when they have failed to enter, some have gone outside to Nigeria, to Gambia, wherever, have qualified and come back and been able to practice. So what is so special about the Ghanaian legal environment that you cannot enter, and when you enter, you cannot exit. But your counterparts or your colleagues can exit somewhere or not enter at all and come back and join the mainstream. I am aware, somebody has said that when this Fourth Republic started, it was full of teachers. And I know my own Major Amponsan retired. Now the predominant number of members of parliament happen to be lawyers. So practicing law is not the only reason why people want to study law. People may even want just to learn acquire the skills, the expertise, the knowledge of logical, review of whatever it is, making debates, making arguments, and use that expertise and skill somewhere in parliament or elsewhere. My idea would be that going forward, there must be a review, for people of all persuasions to come on board and see how best the environment can be,
a review of the law, you mean?
No, a review of the structure, the system.
Okay. Yeah, it is the law that must review the structure.
Including reviewing the law, because you need to review the law and replace it with a new text that seeks to attain certain objectives. But it's very troublesome.
There's a certain unfair attention to the General Legal Counsel as against the body that conducts the exams and those who are training the students. Because you must train your students to pass the exam. You train them, they don't pass the exam, and then you blame somebody up. The one who is conducting the exam is not the focus of your blame. You are blaming those who are in charge of the regulation.
I heard some of those who didn't make it on radio saying that to start with, you don't get a syllabus. You don't know exactly what you're going to write about. When you fail, nobody comes back to tell you why you failed, where you failed. So you could probably go back and make amends.
The results are published. They see their marks, whether you pass or fail.
But why did you fail? In which subject matter areas were you deficient, for instance? Now, the restrictions, if I use the armed forces and elsewhere, if you're looking for 100 cadets to go to Teshi, and you have 30,000 Ghanaians who are interested in going, necessarily, you need to, find a mechanism of reducing the number and finding the best qualified to go. But it is not restricting the numbers. The idea is that, given that the Ghana Armed Forces is of the size and the structure that it has now, it does not need more than, let's say, 100 cadets every year. But our colleagues around the table have suggested that, necessarily because our population has risen from 5.5 million since 1957 to 30 million. The economy has, expanded. Society is changing. We cannot we cannot meet the legal needs of this kind of society with the structures that were created or established.
So why are we also seeking to change the rules here? What is best practice? If you are seeking to enter into an institution, do you have a right to demand to know whether I passed to enter or I didn't pass? It is only when you enter and you take an exam whilst you are in there that you have a right to seek to know why you failed or why you didn't fail.
I would suggest,
why are we changing the rules for this?
I would suggest that it would be helpful for society if there was a report that was published that showed in very general terms why 93% of those who attempted failed.
If I applied to enter Harvard and I didn't get, I can't ask this. Why must I be doing that for the Ghana School of Law?
You know, our circumstances are different. Last year, I've read in the narrative here, 80% had failed. they went to Parliament and petitioned.
Right.
This year, instead of the number falling, the number has rather risen. So there is a cause for concern. You see, around this debate, what we're talking about is what some of us have been talking about, national security, which devolves around the needs of the individual. So if people feel that they are being frustrated in pursuing professions that they are interested in pursuing, that frustration alone does not augur well for all of us. So it ceases to become a legal issue.
Right.
It becomes, you know, something of, you know, another dimension that we need to be interested in.
All right, so a minute for you to finish your point, and then we move on to the next issue that we have to discuss. Yes.
Penka has welcome.
Yes,
welcome.
1 minute.
Welcome, Penka. But the models are there. The General Legal the Ghana Medical School, assuming they had said that all students will want to be lawyers, I mean, to be doctors, to congregate at Kolebu for housemanship. This problem that we have at the Ghana Law School would have happened at Kolebu. That's a model. So you can use, so even the Chief Justice is wrong. Because when you go to University for Development Studies and study medicine, they qualify you there.
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, Science and Tech, they qualify you there, and Legon, they qualify you there.
Should there be a presidential intervention?
Well, leadership, it's all about leadership.
Should
so
there
the
be a
president can direct that the laws be changed, or a national conference.
Or not Parliament.
No, Parliament only works on the directive of the president.
Thank you very much. So when we return, there are a few more questions, or a lot more questions to be asked about the work done by Emil Schott and his team, and the white paper, the cherry-picking white paper issued by the president or the government. We'll be right back to ask those questions. You're welcome back. That issue that was supposed to take about some 30 minutes of our time managed to take up to about 40 minutes of it. But we'll stay here on the questions that are also law. There's a lot of law to really talk about, but we'll talk about the other aspects of it that is actually not exactly law, because we don't have too many lawyers, really. Right, so the government issued a statement, and we're going to deal with the attempted quote-unquote coup plot before we go to the Emil Schott Commission. The government issued a statement through the information minister, and it said that 15 months of surveillance by the intelligence organizations of the country had successfully aborted an attempt through arms to attack the presidency and destabilize the state. What exactly is that? Some people were put before the court, and some charges have been preferred. People are asking questions about those charges and that they don't match the weight of the statement. Just yesterday, one army official, one civilian who is also in the army, were also added to the first three, is it? So we are asking the question, was this as ridiculous as some of the security analysts want us to believe? But how did they come by that conclusions that they have reached? Some of them say it was a joke and that the state, the government, owes us an apology. So on this note, I'd like to start with the Deputy Attorney General, because he is the one putting the people in court, because eventually he's the one who will be handling all of these matters when they come before his desk. Yes, so people say, what kind of a joke is this? It's a prank.
Thank you. You know, first of all, Samson, I would like to say that those who are trivializing the matter perhaps do not understand what a threat to security is. They do not understand the implication of whatever was given out to the public by the Honorable Minister for Information. Samson, people are even brandishing on social media and others a knife and some pistols and those things, and saying that it cannot kill a squirrel, thereby trivializing the whole matter. I asked this question elsewhere, and I want to repeat it on this show platform. September 11, were there sophisticated weapons that were used? Were there grenades? Were there launchers and all those sophisticated modern weaponry that were used? Yet, in my estimation, it shook the foundation of America's democracy. So, if you are talking about what was on display.
Can you pause there and explain what you mean by were they sophisticated weapons that were used? Because to hijack the planes and ram them into the World Trade Center.
That's what I'm saying.
Took a lot.
Yeah, it took a lot, but it did not take, I mean, from all the investigations that were conducted and the reports that were issued, nowhere did they indicate that on board those planes were bombs or on board those planes were sophisticated weapons and etc. At least what I heard or read from the reports were that some of the planes were hijacked using a knife.
Really?
Yes, some of the planes. And they ran them into those buildings. Imagine, you see, it was a period of thinking on the part of those who caused the mayhem. So if you saw those weapons on display, and on the basis of that you came to certain conclusions that whatever happened was a ruse, and that it was an exaggeration.
Did the caliber of those people, the September 11 example you use, the caliber of those people involved and the associations that they were connected with, was that important?
Very. And in this particular one, it's equally important.
Okay, show us how.
You see, and I'll demonstrate that in a moment. Samson, first, when the release came and the furor that greeted it and etc., some people were arrested, and those people who were arrested were put before court. Subsequently, what happened? Other people have again been arrested and put before court, including a military officer. You are aware of that. And a civilian serving in the military. That person has also been arrested and put before court. What it tells you is that it was a gamut of a whole network of persons acting in concert. And that is why paramount among the charges is the charge of conspiracy. Preliminarily, that a number of people were conspiring and acting together with a common purpose to wit destabilizing the state. And that is why you don't need to underestimate the capacity of any person who has such a thinking. You know, there is no fine to find an art to find a mind's construction in the face. And because there's no art to find a mind's construction in the face, you look at the evidence available and the intelligence you have gathered. After all, as the saying goes, not even the devil knows the intent of what? The mind of man. For the mind of man is not triable. But the conduct of man, you can deduce from it as a totality that based on what the person is doing, it's going to lead to A or B. And remember that the statement was categorical, that the surveillance was for a period of 15 months. And they did follow up on a lot of things. And that's why I indicated on other platforms again that Samson, there are some of the things that the information minister rightly did not disclose those ones. I mean, those that border on strict confidentiality and security matters that will lead to further arrest and other things will not be disclosed. Now, for those who are skeptics and cynics on this matter, they should wait when we get to the end of the matter. They will know whether their position has been vindicated or not. And I know that government's position will be vindicated with the further arrests that are being made and the investigations that are being conducted. Again, Samson, one of the things that have come up sharply in this matter, and I have spoken to the issue, is the charges that were leveled against the accused
manufacture of guns and possession without
lawful authority. These were the charges that were leveled against the accused.
So the question is, why didn't you charge them for treason or something like that?
No. But I'm saying we are not there yet. I know you have so much experience about matters like this. You see, when we arrest a person and the person is immediately put before a district court and charged with murder, for example, the charge can change to manslaughter, depending on the evidence at the end of the building of the docket. The charge of murder preliminarily can later change to the charge of manslaughter. We have that. And you know that it is the Attorney General that will eventually determine what are the final charges that will be put on the person and the appropriate court that the person will be put before that. It's been our practice. It may not necessarily, we may have criticism of it, but time and again we've practiced that over the period, that when we arrest a person in matters like this, based on the set of facts available at the time of arrest, you find out whether the charges that you are going to prefer against the person are maintainable. Now, if you go to court with charges that do not actually support the facts of the case, you know that the court has the discretion to discharge the people. So, for now, the charges that the police actually preferred against them are charges that are maintainable based on the set of facts available. Namely, that weapons were retrieved. And, for example, under Section 192 of the Criminal Offences Act, if you are in possession of arms and ammunition without lawful authority, you commit a first-degree felony. And if people are even playing with that charge, that is a serious charge. So under Section 192, which is a first-degree felony, of course, if you are convicted, you can go in for life in prison. And I know, when I was in private practice, this particular one has gone to the Supreme Court. Because somebody was put before a circuit court and charged with this offense. He was convicted and he appealed, and he was successful. One of the grounds was that this is an indictable offense. 192 is indictable. It is not one that is triable summarily. So what it means is that when you are charged with this particular offense, and remember, the accused persons were put before a district court. So the substantive trial itself, if the charges remain as they are, the district court will not have jurisdiction. So when investigations...
Are they charged on Section 192, or they are charged on Section 6 of the Arms and Ammunition Act?
Section 6 of Arms and Ammunition Act is also part of the charges.
Which is manufacture,
yes,
which you don't have the power to do.
Exactly.
The media report, as we read them, is about manufacture.
Yes, but possession without lawful authority is part.
Okay.
It's part. These are the two. Possession without lawful authority and manufacture. Because
the argument would have been that if you are charging them as per Section 6, and the offense provision in Section 26
yes,
of that act, the Arms and Ammunition Act,
yes,
is that they were going to suffer a penalty of 1,000 penalty units
yes,
at most.
Yes.
And if they were found guilty, either they get that or they get that together with a maximum of 5 years in jail.
Yes, but that's why I'm saying that people are running away from the 192. That would have
suggested that that's not serious.
No, that's why people are running away. Why are they running away from the 192, which is part?
Okay.
You see, you have a lot of charges. And first of all, the first part is that they were manufacturing by the facts.
Okay.
And so were they having the authority to manufacture? If they didn't have the authority, that constitutes a charge.
Right.
Now, the second phase of it is what they were doing. And listen to 192, with your permission. Despite the provisions of any other enactment, a person who has in possession, custody or control without lawful excuse, the proof of which lies on that person, an explosive, a firearm, or an ammunition, commits a first-degree felony. Now, 2, a prosecution under subsection 1 shall not be instituted without the consent in writing of the Attorney General.
Okay.
So you see, at this particular stage, these are what I will refer to as just holding charges.
Okay.
Because of the constitutional injunction that you cannot hold a person in custody for more than 48 hours. You arrest a person, and based on the immediate set of facts available, you put a person before court.
All right.
And then, if your facts are supported by, your charges are supported by your facts, the judge will exercise a discretion to remand and ask you to go back for further investigations and come back on another date. And this is exactly what happened.
All right.
And again, the charges are not final. Remember that the docket will finally be built, and a duplicate one will be forwarded to the Office of Attorney General. And upon review, if the set of facts available at that time point to one thing, that the persons who actually have been arrested planned treason, or they were acting in furtherance of the offense of treason, then the charges will change. And it is just like, as I indicated earlier, in practice, I mean, you've represented clients in murder cases and all that. We put the people before the district court, and when the docket is brought and it's advised that they be charged with murder, they are committed.
Right.
At the district court.
The
But they don't stand trial
at the district
there.
court, yes.
But they now are committed to stand trial at the High Court.
Right.
In treason matters, you know also that if eventually the facts point to that, and then we recommend that it will be tried by 3 justices of the High Court.
Right.
But with the current charges that are available to us, if we are going by 192, then in the end, it's going to be tried by a judge and 7-member jury.
All right, so don't pay too much attention to those who think you went to the wrong court and all of that. They don't know, so you have educated them. The committal ought to be at the district court, and that's what they did. So they didn't go to a wrong court. And subsequently, when they are ready, it will go to the High Court, and the judges will take care of it. But I want you also to deal with this question. 15 months, 1 year and 3 months of surveillance. The Attorney General is telling us, and people don't want to believe that, are you in the same position, that they are now in the process of thinking what charges are maintainable or sustainable?
Yes, Samson, in fact, listening to the Deputy Attorney General, my good brother, I feel very much scandalized.
That's a strong word.
What he has said.
That's too strong.
What he has said is simply that they're still fishing. It flies in the face of the rule of law.
Not at all.
And Tony Bingham has written an elaborate book on the rule of law. Just go grab a copy. A person arrested, even our constitution repeats it. Section, article, is it 17 or fair trial?
19.
19. Must be told.
That's 14.
Or 14. You must be told. It's a constitutional right of the offense for which he's being held. Now,
Which we have done.
How did we come to where we are? And now I should say that we need to commend the security services because they have not issued any statement. They have not made any public pronouncement on this matter. Our discussions on this matter arises out of the explanations that were given by the Minister of Information, accompanied by the pictorial evidence, which my good brother has since said that were leaked to trivialize the issue. So these are the facts and matters which have informed our decision in this matter. You followed people for 15 good months, and you still think that you should charge them with a conspiracy to manufacture weapons with a lawful authority, conspiracy to possess with a lawful authority, possession and manufacture. You still think that this is what the charges you should after 15 months? These are the issues, the fundamental issues that are being asked by the Ghanaians. And assuming but not admitting that they had further and better evidence, what prevented you from charging them and proving those evidence in court? In any case, if you had charged them with subversion, and what you are simply saying is that some people or a group of people had attempted to overthrow the Constitution, not government. It is this Constitution that establishes the presidency. So if you're attacking the presidency, you are attacking this constitution. The constitution says that that is a high crime.
So the prosecutors would be...
That's what the constitution says.
You would say the prosecutors have been lousy.
Very, very lousy.
If the facts remain what we have been told in the press release.
Simply.
Okay.
Because nobody, and to destabilize this country, and that's different from terrorism. The intent of terrorism is to put fear in the people. And so whatever means that you will use to put fear is terrorist in nature. So even if you decide to spray pepper on people to put fear in them, you are committing an act of terror. That was what happened in America. There was no attempt to subvert the American Constitution. There was no attempt. There was no treasonable attempt in the 9/11 matter. What you are claiming here is subversion and treason. Who has ever arrested a treasonable offender?
He says they may get there when the docket gets to the Attorney General.
You don't start a journey that is that of a serious nature with such charges. You don't. You must treat us seriously. You must treat us seriously. You don't start a journey that way. A journey. Look, you know the offense of treason. What does the good book say? It's death. Punishable by what? Death. And you think he's a soldier? I don't know. But I've heard about many coups. I was alive to see many coups. In fact, as we speak, you see why Ghanaians are mocking the government? Today, 27 years.
Some Ghanaians.
27 years after this experiment. Some Ghanaians have never experienced a coup. So, largely those who are questioning what you have put, what the pictures and the statements you have made, are doing it against the background of what we already know to be coup d'etats. I mean, to be preparations towards coup d'etats. Tell me, who has ever planned a coup d'etat on social media?
But
Then,
Professor, respectfully.
Professor, on the time you discovered the coup plot on the internet.
So, Professor Saka, the foreign minister under Liman. You remember him?
Sure, of course.
Yes. I was privileged to sit in his class. He said Rawlings must be a very lucky person. A very lucky person. That for a person to plan and succeed in the coup, and even on 2 occasions, must be a very lucky person. Because the security of the state is always alive to matters of coup. That's why I congratulate the security. Because even if the people were manufacturing weapons without lawful authority, that's a crime in itself.
Okay.
That's exactly why we've charged them.
So is it okay for the ridicule, for the mockery, if you say here that this may have been incompetence on the part of the prosecution? Is that the same, or does that give us the right to now make conclusive judgment that this is a joke?
You see, the incompetence, the statements, and the repeated reinforcement of the statements is what is leading people to believe that this might be, like in your words, a prank. That is a giant deceit. Might be calculated to divert attention.
From what?
Well, people are entitled to speculate when you give them the opportunity to do that. And in this case, it's government that has given the people the opportunity to speculate.
I think I need to put something in perspective. The learned senior counsel hasn't told Ghanaians why he said he felt scandalized by what I said.
Oh, you're going back to the original system.
I haven't told anybody because I have simply said that these charges are maintainable, but they can change.
Right.
But he said he was scandalized. So I want to know why he was scandalized.
Okay, let me tell you why I felt scandalized. I felt scandalized because
he said you don't use 15 months.
You are telling us here that having arrested the people and having put them in custody and having said that they were engaged in a subversive activity and having charged them with an offense that is not related to subversion, we should wait.
That's not correct.
No.
192.
192 subversion.
If you are in possession
It's not subversion.
Hold on. If you are in possession, custody, or control without lawful excuse, the proof of which lies on you, you have an explosive firearm or ammunition, commits a first-degree felony.
But that's not subversion.
Hold on. In furtherance of this, what is the intent?
Oh, no, that one.
What is the intent?
You are moving on to motive. And motive,
what is the intent?
Motive, you don't establish motive.
Conclude for us.
And you are telling us, you see why I first got that? I'm telling
Conclude your submission.
You are saying that we should wait. And that we should wait, too. After putting the people in jail and telling the whole of the country that they intended to destabilize the country, we should wait until you come out with the facts.
Okay.
It's scandalous.
Okay.
It's not.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's not
Thank
at all.
Now,
in fact, the charge of being scandalous has not been proven.
There's a good reason. I'm asking Colonel Festus Agwaji to hold on for us. Now let's hear from Coup. And
Coup is a Minister of Defense.
That's a good one.
He was groomed by his father. So.
Right. So Coup, we have all of these people, experts, including Colonel Agwaji here, who have made comments, some of which, well, he was measured from what I have read and listened him say. He was measured. We have others who had said this is as ridiculous as anything, that this whatever cannot even kill a squirrel or something like that. Question is, I know that you will have the rare privilege and benefit of seeing the evidence to be able to show that these people are in a rush and they are in a hurry to make the conclusions they are making.
Yeah. See, the 15 months time frame, what was it that was going on? It was intelligence gathering. They had identified some people, some discussions with designs and things. That 15 months was intelligence gathering period, which led to an arrest. The decision to arrest is within the discretion of those who were doing the intelligence gathering and the authorities, based on evidence that had been gathered and perhaps reading into the designs. Are these people ready now? Are they not ready? What are they attempting? All that then led to arrest of those involved. Now, post-arrest, you have investigations and interrogation. Investigations, interrogation of those you've arrested will lead possibly to other people who are not being captured within the scope of intelligence gathering. It is when you have done sufficient investigations and interrogation which you end up building a docket because you intend to prosecute. And my brother can correct me, because as far as I'm concerned, at this stage, the AG's department or office are not really...
There's no file in our office.
Yes, you are not involved.
And he knows. He knows.
Yeah.
But they will prosecute. So
eventually
it
yes,
will come to
but
us.
I was trying to make that point. Yeah, if they advise.
Yeah, if they advise, yeah.
But so we're in a very preliminary stage, post the intelligence gathering and arrest. And to be honest with you, I can understand the cynicism, the skepticism, and the disbelief. I can appreciate it. Particularly when that picture of some pistols and the knife was put out there, and how people ran with it. Knowing how that picture came out, I then realized that the motive was clear. Those who leaked that picture were seeking to create the conditions for cynicism, disbelief, and skepticism. Yes, our history is also part of it. Over the years, from Nkrumah to today, we've had instances where coup plots have been suspected or uncovered, but eventually turn out not to be exactly what they were. We have had that history. I'm not going to
2003, 2004.
So many times.
2007, yeah.
So there's a history to the cynicism, skepticism, and disbelief. I have no problems with that. But at the same time, we've also had situations where these plots that were discovered turned out to be true, some of them. Look, in 1994, September, 5 people were arrested. They were all based in the UK and were coming and going. They were arrested and sent to court in 1997, October. Watch the timelines.
3 years. Yeah.
They were arrested in 1994 for subversion and treason. They processed them, processed all sorts of things. The case came to court October 1997.
They were kept in custody for 3 years?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Judgment was delivered January 1999. Those guys were Alexander Ofei, Kwame Ofori-Appiah, Sylvester Adai-Jumo, John Kojo Owusu Boachi, and Emmanuel Osei Kofi. He was a driver. The exhibits that were presented in court when the case began were red bands, diaries, and notebooks where you see some of their plans and designs, and money that they had sent in order to purchase grenades. But the notebooks and the diaries exposed their intentions. They had also gone to the broadcasting house to solicit support from some of the soldiers who were on guard duties. All this put together, processed, became a basis to build a docket and prosecute the case, which was done successfully in January 1999. This one, fast forward to this one, there are many other examples.
Except that this one, today, you will not be allowed to keep them in custody for 3 years before you commence a prosecution.
Yes. I wonder why that happened to them and all of us were silent or did not observe. It's surprising. And interestingly, this case has not yet been reported. It's unreported.
Okay.
I've been chasing.
Draw Senior Kweku's attention why they were kept for 3 years. Perhaps if they were charged with treason, you know, at the time it was non-bailable.
Okay. That's a good point.
Yeah, so that's a good point. That could be the reason.
I've been chasing the judgments the last 2-3 days, and I was told that wasn't reported.
Just 2017.
Fantastic.
It was non-bailable.
I think that's a very good point.
Right.
Now, so my point was this. The picture that came out with the pistols and the knife was not a sufficient basis for security analysts to have proceeded to actually either seek to dilute what the Minister of Information had put out or to actually throw it out entirely into the gutter when you don't have sufficient brief. Fortunately, I've been able to watch video recordings. I've been able to listen to audio recordings. And I am convinced beyond doubt.
Video recordings of the
The
activities
15 months.
and audio of the activities,
Of the
conversations.
15 months.
Okay.
I'm not going to go into details because it will be unfair to the suspects or those who've been arrested to go into details. It's as if we are trying them here. And I don't think that's fair. But because you made it a topic for us to discuss, we must do the discussion from an informed basis.
It's a public interest matter. It can be
It
an
is.
exception, really.
I just confirmed that he's a defense minister.
You see, I understand. Kenna was not doing mischief. You are doing mischief.
I was giving you respect.
Yes, I understood it. That's why I wasn't. But he's doing mischief.
It doesn't have to. Some journalists have had the privilege of seeing the footage and
Really?
doing what he has done. Yeah.
Again,
So he doesn't have to be a defense
again,
minister.
I have a
Kuku,
huge problem with that.
Kuku,
As a human rights lawyer,
Kuku, go ahead.
I have a huge problem. Evidence gathered which is intended for prosecution is not to be released to any person under human rights conditions until that evidence is
well, that charge has not been placed in court in the first place, so it's not a matter
so,
before
you
the
see,
court.
so when you do that, it becomes prejudicial to the matter.
Actually,
human rights,
it has to be stated. Actually, they have not been charged with subversive activities like treason and so on. So this is not before the court. Can we proceed?
Yes, and you see, we all want an accountable
We've seen the charge sheets.
and transparent governance. We have a lot of think tanks that have been insisting. And I tell you, in the last week, I've had this debate with a lot of people in officialdom that I think there is a certain missing link. The think tanks, especially those who deal with security issues, authorities must find a way of institutionalizing a certain mechanism to interact with them consistently. That thing is missing, and it's part of the challenge we are facing. And I've been going through, I started this advocacy about a year ago. In the last week, I've seen it come to the front line. So you see, if you see the full remit of the evidence, then you see that that isolated picture was no basis for anybody to make a judgment.
Okay.
No basis at all. Then if you also listened to the plans and the attempts to contact people in the military, indeed there are 10 soldiers right now who are undercover, on the radar, and busted. My understanding is that those who reported, and it's good that Colonel is here, those who reported having been contacted and their assistant being solicited, obviously will be part of the prosecution witnesses, I suspect.
Sure.
So it reduces to 6 instead of the 10. I think there was too much premature ejaculation in the atmosphere.
Who do you blame for that? I have heard the Minister of Information and others suggest that it is the media that is to blame for calling security analysts, you know, over the statement.
No. You know, I would never blame the media for that. We had the look, these days is even gone down. In the early days of this democracy, especially on radio, when radio came to the fore, a politician may be in the bathroom, you call him early morning, he hasn't read the newspaper. You say, oh, there's this, or so what does it say? You read 2 paragraphs and he starts talking, and you want to blame me? Decline the invitation to comment at that moment. Go do double checking, and then come back.
Exactly.
So, for me, I don't blame the media. But you see, my view is that there is also the bigger picture of that lack of
mechanism for
interacting. It's no excuse for any individual security analyst who made a certain analysis. But if we want to move this country forward, we cannot do with that as far as I'm concerned. Why? The authorities sometimes interact with the media. They do press media encounters, some public, some private. How much more these civil society groups, including the security think tanks or analysts, who are contributing their quota to the democratic consolidation process? I think it's a critical thing to look at. But you see,
Kuku, beyond this series of meetings that they are said to have been holding at the Next Door Beach Resort in Teshi and other locations, they contacting these soldiers and depositing 7,000 cedis to purchase some arms and so on. 7 AK-47 and so on. Beyond that information, what else? What were they saying at these meetings? What were they doing?
They had, you see, and again, this is where the difficulty is, but since you agree it's of public interest, let's talk some. See, the scenarios where they even contemplate the kidnapping of the president. They contemplate a situation, and this is VDVD, it's there. It will come out in court. They contemplate a situation where the president, the vice president, the chief of defense staff, and some other top shots are at a congregation, have congregated at a place to explode that thing they were doing there. You see the guy manufacturing with the doctor present. This is video. And they talk of exploding this thing, which projectiles come out, like nails will come out.
Needles.
Yeah, yes, like needles rather, yes. And then also some chemicals that will make you
Rosy.
and then even go off. They contemplate that. These are things that they were discussing and doing. If you see the manufacturing in action. They're doing it. But you see, they had been infiltrated. So it was the infiltrators who were videoing and recording for 15 months. And I give credit to the security establishment, yeah. Defense intelligence especially. The meetings where they held deciding to recruit, it's all recorded. So in my view, this is not one of the fakes. There have been fakes before. I'll be dishonest. Sitting, or even if not deliberately manufactured.
And
then
ultimately, did they talk about, did they have a conversation about what they would do after if they were successful with this kind of
take over the government of the state?
Yeah. So check them with subversion.
No. But I've told you this. In terms, I wonder why you are jumping the gun. You want to do what you do what the prosecution did with the Kennedy Japan thing.
No.
You went first talking about genocide.
No. They are different.
No, I'm coming. No, I'm coming.
No, two different things.
You don't get the drift.
You get all the evidence.
No, you are not getting my drift.
Riotous conduct.
No,
Thank you.
You get all the evidence.
No. Wait. That's the point I'm making.
Samson.
Yes.
The trajectory.
Let me throw this in.
Yeah.
Senior Ogun. Have we taken, during the surveillance, were statements taken from accused persons?
Of course.
No.
The surveillance. No.
During the interrogation.
No, they were not taken.
Yeah, but that's why I made the point.
Yeah,
So how do you arrive at
Fantastic.
charges, substantive charges as to treason?
Look, but that's the point I was making. The post.
You see what I have said, which you see.
Can I make a point?
No, there is a procedure.
Let me summarize.
Until that person is arrested.
Thank you.
And so
but
how
that
do
is
you
the
charge
point.
So you have arrested him.
No.
So that is when
No.
the investigation
He's making
starts.
excuse
See,
for the preliminary so-called
Yeah,
charge.
but that's the point. That's why I say, you see, after you finish there, after arrest came after the intelligence gathering.
Yes.
The investigations and interrogation will lead to compilation of a docket.
Right.
In the process of investigation and interrogation, many new angles could come up.
Sure.
And many other names unknown could also pop up.
But you don't think that it's some incompetence on the part of the prosecution and the state at large, because it's the state prosecuting them.
Yeah.
That you have 15 months of this incontrovertible, evidence, ocular proof of people, manufacturing, discussing and talking about kidnapping the president, the vice president, and all of these people. And all you can do is issue a statement, the next day take them to court and charge them for manufacturing of guns.
Only the uninitiated, only the neophyte would be ignorant of the precedents of how such cases are handled. There's no injury at all at this stage.
Those cases, there were no the evidence that you talk about.
I've just told you, I've just given you a classic example.
There were no the
arrested.
videos. There were no the video coverage of and the conversations talking about kidnapping the president and taking over the states and managing the country.
Yes. You see, I don't know the limit of disclosure in some of these things. This process that has begun, are you aware that it's throwing up some new names? Interrogation?
But that doesn't matter.
Wait, please, hold on.
Are we, you see, I don't know, but
in criminal prosecution.
Wait. Make note of what you want
is it the challenge of the tactics? If it's a challenge of the tactics, it will be a needless and endless debate. But I'm saying that we have had precedents where these things happen. If this process does not culminate in a treason trial, then we will all know that indeed there was no substantial basis. But I am convinced the way the processes are going, that's logical. It's so logical. That's why I said there's a premature ejaculation, even here by my good friend here. Why are you in a hurry?
No, we should be in a hurry.
No.
Rights issues are involved.
You see, if anybody's human rights is violated, there's a forum to cure that.
Because to suggest also that I have evidence, ocular proof of subversive activities, but it is only at the point I made the arrest that I can do something substantive, is also an excuse. That cannot be sustained.
See, what is the essence of investigations, interrogation, and compilation of a docket?
Especially after
you
you have issued a statement to suggest subversion.
It doesn't matter. You see, my view is that the people are entitled to raise questions, but my view is that don't jump to judgments.
Yes.
Has this thing been poorly managed?
No. What I know and my experience, no. I will be disappointed, hugely disappointed, if charges of treason are not preferred subsequently to what we are going through because of what I know and what I've seen. I'll be hugely disappointed, and it will not be in the national interest. Let the courts decide whether they are guilty or not guilty. That we all know. But the state, the evidence available to the state, eventually, and it should be sooner than later, should be put before the court. It helps Ghanaians too.
Right. Okay.
Just let me
but I don't get your point. I don't get your point, and this is why.
Yes.
One of the reasons.
Yes.
How many times has Namwan's charges been amended?
Where?
How many times? About 3 times, right?
Something.
So in the presence of this evidence,
yes,
you cannot say you charge with manufacture instead of subversive activities because you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot.
Running away from
because you are allowed by the law to amend at any time until the trial is over.
And that is why
criminal prosecution, rather than the Attorney General, you can always get the people at any stage during the proceedings.
Let him explain. Let him explain.
You see, the accused persons, as we stand now, they are in court on caution. Please, they are in court on, you know it.
Yeah, their charges have not been taken. Their pleas have not been taken.
Yes, in fact, they have not been charged. Properly so speaking. They have been charged on caution.
No, they have been charged.
There are two things that happen in prosecution.
Their pleas have not been taken.
You will be first
in the stricter legal sense, the court doesn't even have jurisdiction over them.
Absolutely. Which I have told you. Which I have told you. That court will, in the end, commit the people to stand trial at a higher court. But I'm saying that, you see, when you are cautioned, a cautioned statement is taken from you. Then investigations are concluded. And then when the advice is perfect, then you are a charge statement is then taken. At this stage, have we taken the charge statement? No.
But you can't send a person to court on caution statement. You can't.
Okay. So Kwenka, wait. In the particulars that you supply the courts, your charge, you give them a charge. Attached to the charge sheet is supposed to be what? Facts.
Yes.
In the facts you give, are they not facts for you to have pressed charges of subversion? And this is why I ask. Here are the facts. The accused persons are colonel and a civilian employee in Ghana Armed Forces, respectively. The accused persons are members of an NGO called Take Action Ghana, that's TAG. The tag, TAG, was incorporated in the year 2018 with Frederick McPalm as the CEO. The accused persons and others in custody plan to organize demonstrations against government and possible takeover of government. Subsequent to their plan, invited a blacksmith from Alavanyo in the Volta region to manufacture arms and explosives to facilitate their intentions. The blacksmith, who is also in custody, charged 2,300 per pistol and 400 per explosive, which includes material cost. Investigations had it that in August 2019, the blacksmith brought his machines and other tools to Accra and was accommodated at Citadel Hospital premises at Alajo to commence production of the arms and explosives. The blacksmith successfully manufactured 6 pistols and 22 explosives, 3 hand grenades, and 5 ammunition, and handed same over to accused persons and others already in custody. Subsequently, the accused persons and others were arrested after test firing at Teshi military shooting range. The case is under investigation.
Sure.
So here's my point.
Sure. Yes.
You are clear in your facts
Yes.
that this is a subversive operation intended to take over the reins of government.
So what's portions?
It's here. Against a demonstration against the government and possible takeover of government.
Possible takeover of government. But
Which means you are not sure.
You see,
hold
on. Intent.
Hold on. Something. Hold on. Don't you see clearly that rather than what the position you are taking, you should be commending the prosecutors at this stage?
Me, I'm asking you questions.
Because the fundamental thing is that the person was invited to manufacture, and the charge at this stage says manufacture.
There's nothing wrong at this stage.
So what is wrong? It is maintained clearly. It's rather supports it. And number 2, he did manufacture. So after manufacturing, they were in possession of it. So possession of ammunition without what? Lawful authority. So after the statements have been taken from them and the review of all the videos and etc., that is when the charges of treason and high treason will now come in. So at this stage, it is perfect. The facts are supported, the charges are supported by the facts.
Exactly.
Franka,
Simplicity.
see, you don't know what I know. I don't know what you know. At least on this table,
Yes.
take what Kweku knows. And that is confirmed. What Kweku has just told you is confirmed. On the basis of that evidence, which is with the security intelligence organization, why will you do this and say it's only the manufacturing you are dealing with?
No, Samson, at the end, I have asked this, and you have answered it 10 times, and we are going back there again. Will that court try the matter? You wanted us to go to district court and say, look, we have brought reasonable charges against these persons. That is why you were looking for.
Oh, it's not Kennedy.
You see,
it's not a coup d'etat.
Let me finish.
And then Honorable Husseini, we learn from previous errors.
All right.
Look, the hula baloo and furore about Kennedy Japan.
Okay, thank you. Let's bring
the last thing is that I want to emphasize.
Okay.
For the purpose, for the avoidance of doubt, I want to emphasize that the procedure adopted by prosecution is not wrong.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
I want to emphasize
as far as
that
some other people are concerned, it's marks of incompetence.
We are doing what is right.
Right. So okay. So have you on this table come to sufficient better particulars to revise your earlier position about what we are dealing with?
But let me say no.
No?
But probably I should start my comments by saying that what we are confronted with as a nation is quite serious. Whether you lived through and experienced the episodes of coups or not, we need to be extremely concerned, worried. To the extent that even Africa News, wherever they are, the Africa Center in Brazzaville, wanted to know what was going on in Ghana and whether Ghanaians, how Ghanaians felt about it and so on. So we need to be very worried. I am extremely concerned that after decades of having gone through all of this, and probably 2 decades of an environment where we judge all, there is even talk of a prospect of a coup. Now, the significance of anybody being dissatisfied with the way and manner in which the affairs of the state are being run, to the extent that they have lost hope and confidence in the democratic institutions, and therefore decide that they're going to use other. I think that is what we need to be concerned about.
But the lunatic French.
Well, I also have issues with, you know, excuse my words, name calling. You see, in conflict analysis, you do not question the sanity of conflict entrepreneurs. You need to assume that you yourself are crazy. So when you're talking about matters of national security, like somebody said, who is this Dr. McPalm? I haven't even heard of his name before. So what is he worried about? And that is where the danger is. Every single one of the 30 million Ghanaians has a stake in the security of this country, in the well-being of this country. And nobody has more say than the other. So we need to allow a platform for, you know, this kind of discourse. Now, the dilemma the government has is that given that this is going to go to court and is probably the highest offense that could ever be committed, is constrained as to how much information it can put out at the preliminary stages without compromising, you know, if you like, the court processes. So that I grant the government. But I have difficulty about, let me call them gaps in the statement that the government issued. A lot has been said about 15 months. Senior Coup knows a bit about what happened during the 15 months. I've heard senior politicians, I wouldn't want to mention names, saying that because we monitor them for 15 months, Ghanaians must accept that they were going to attack the presidency. They could have used 14 months or the 15 months in mobilization, setting up the TAG and trying to build a base. That is all they could have done. In the last month, probably, they started the manufacture, the procurement, that kind of stuff. So the 15 months per se doesn't give you any sense of the gravity of the allegations until it goes to court.
Okay.
And we've heard it before, you know. So you take 15th May. In court, we'll hear what it is that the 15th May core clique, you know, started doing. You know, that failed. Same as 4th June, same as 31st, whatever it is. You know, of course, 31st didn't go, you know, to court. So I have questioned the meaning of the statement saying the presidency, the meaning of destabilization, and leaving it to conjecture for Ghanaians to decide whether indeed it was a coup in the making or not. So part of the discourse has been around, excuse myself, a bit of ambiguity in what the government statement, you know, to start with said. In certain conversations with a very senior military officer and another senior politician, one of the questions I asked, what was the motive of this group? It's not very clear from...
But if you listen to the recordings,
yes,
the gentleman really is anti-establishment.
Yes. Now, being anti-establishment...
No, he thinks that this political system is not working.
Yes.
And he actually sees both the NDC and MPP as problematic.
I've read about that. But I see, being anti-establishment...
That is not written.
You said what?
Facebook post and all that about him.
That's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to what he said.
That is true.
That is
I
he reminded me of
his
Rawlings.
Facebook post.
Can I make this point? He reminded me of Mr. Rawlings prior to May 15th. His sentiments, things he used to say, and you would know better in the barracks among his friends and all that.
But there could have been others
to have that kind
who
of
expressed similar sentiments, but didn't go the next hawk.
But this, he has gone beyond
He's gone. He's manufacturing.
No, that is what the government is telling us.
No, I'm saying that I just told you that what Coup just told you, the little disclosure he has made, that's just a bit of the disclosure. And that is confirmed.
This is something, this
That's
is very, very unfair.
If you make it a condition,
the video and the conversation is confirmed.
I agree.
This is very unfair.
I agree.
Okay.
You see, I think in one instance, that as I've been sitting here, that was he an honorable minister, Adaudu?
No.
Yes. Probably Adaudu should have been here.
Okay.
Because
He's
I've
lawyer
heard
for the
him 3
accused
times
cases. Okay.
in the media, you know, disputing the merits in the state's case.
I've heard him.
So it's a bit tricky to take the Minister of Information's statement on its face value and what Coup is telling us, that he has got, you know, privileged information and so on. So we need to base the discussion about what all of us know. And what all of us know is a bit vague on the motive for the group trying to destabilize, attack the president, and indeed what a presidency means.
Okay, so I just invited you to take what he has said as further and better particulars. Will it change your views?
But if it is proven
assuming
no.
he sees it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No, assuming
Yes.
even before court, assuming you get the same access and evaluate the information, would the opposition change?
Oh, I'll still have to do a bit of analysis.
That's what I mean. After
For
the
instance,
analysis.
in discussions about coups, the question of who commands forces comes in.
Yeah.
Now, when Kutuka was attempting to overthrow the government, let me use this platform to say, one Colonel Mohammed or Colonel M.M. Al-Hassan, he was then the director of military intelligence. He generated an intelligence report, which went to Major General Bauer.
You mean Hassan?
Hassan.
Yeah.
Yes. It went to Major General Bauer, who was Army Commander or Chief of Army Staff.
I know.
Colonel Kutuka got livid and had an altercation with the general. So the general turned to Colonel Hassan and said, redraw the intelligence report. So the intelligence report was redrawn.
Yes.
As a result of that, Kutuka, who was then the director or director general logistics at Bema camp, was moved to Kumasi. Now when he went to Kumasi, he became a commander, commanding a brigade. And fortunately for him, he had a free-fire who was then his brigade major. So he was able now to design a plan that moved the entire, let me say, entire Northern Brigade to Accra. But even that, he succeeded because General Okran, who was his counterpart in Teshi, also bought in.
It's true.
Colonel Kokapia, who was, let's say, CEO 48 Engine. You see, to do the kind of coup that Kutuka did, you need to be in command of troops.
So you are saying that a coup must be military?
Well, a coup, by its definition, you know, has to be military. You see what I mean? Because it's going to involve...
There cannot be an outside intervention.
Well, if
But there are military
civilians...
elements. But there are military
Let me
elements.
explain. Let me explain.
Please wait.
In one
There are military
scenario,
elements involved.
the 1966 coup involved formations, troops, and units against the presidential guard, you know, commanded by Davis and Lerego. The difficulty I've had in some of the discussions, including people who have called into multimedia, is that given what they are seeing, necessarily these people are going to be able to overthrow the government. And I have said, no, wait a minute. The wait a minute is that you cannot take the scenario of 15 May and 4th June, that somebody with one pistol or a knife disarmed a Mowag, took the Mowag, broke into armor. No. You see, 15 May and 4th June was about dissatisfaction in the Ghana Armed Forces.
You are not suggesting also that on the basis of the intelligence that they had, they should ignore these guys?
No, I'm not saying they should ignore.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that, in fact, my main concern, and these are questions that you do in analysis, I'm looking at the set of equipment, the 6 pistols, the 9 AK-47s, the 22 IEDs, and the 3 small grenades. And I'm saying that ordinarily, can 3 civilians who don't command any troops, at the time the colonel's name had not been mentioned, and I know this colonel very well, because he passed through my hands at the GMA.
Okay.
So let's say Colonel Gameli, Kojo Gameli. I don't know his appointment, but definitely he's not the commander. You see it? So even if they have made contacts, my concern is that the scenario that should create concern for Ghana is that there is some resentment in the armed forces to the extent that when they use those explosives with a few 1 or 2 military officers, colonels, and civilians, they can get the armed forces to join in. That is where my worry is. Otherwise, I will challenge the efficacy and effectiveness of 3 civilians, 2 colonels. Now you say 6 out of the 10.
Colonel,
but the names are on
intent.
social media.
Let's put aside question as to whether the
You're talking about whether they have the capacity.
See, whether the coup will succeed or not. I'm not sure it's the matter being discussed.
That's what we're discussing.
Did they have the intent to organize
you have
war
seen
in
the
the face
document.
of the law? Would that not be treasonable?
No,
I'm
in
asking.
the face of the law,
that.
in the face of the law, the attempt is actually a crime.
Yes.
The attempt.
You see, Samson,
It's an inchoate offense.
Not whether they have the
disputing-
capacity to succeed.
Okay.
Maybe you're not following my train of thought. I'm not disputing the evidence, electronic, whatever other types of
You are disputing,
evidence.
you are challenging the capacity to consummate such,
No,
you know.
But that's not the subject
I'm
now.
also challenging the state. You see what I mean? To give us better particulars around which we can have a discussion.
We'll do that in court.
You see, the conspiracy theory in some segments of society that, wait a minute, this government is only trying to deflect that. You cannot rule that out.
Yeah, but that has
Because there
always
is
been the idea.
evidence
People
of
always
states.
say that.
You see what I mean? Look, states can give you something that looks very, very credible. But underneath,
Outside,
it's a frame.
if it's not going to go to court,
Yeah, he said that. That whatever they did was small boys meat. Worse things are happening. It's time for another revolution or that,
I'm
given
surprised.
those conditions.
because that's against his philosophy.
No.
He doesn't like
I'm trying to
overthrowing
suggest that
constitutions.
people can make statements.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And all of us can make
And
statements.
this
In fact,
this
I
man
have
is so
reason.
explosive, and I haven't heard this. It really so
Okay, so
explosive.
he's
No,
not
no.
sure either it is Boachijan. Boachijan has spoken.
No, over the last 3 months.
It will be against his principles.
Yes.
He doesn't like overthrowing
You
constitutions.
see. So
Okay.
what I'm
But
trying
he's
to
not sure whether it's Boachijan or it is the other
Bach
person
and
he
Fortu
mentioned.
doesn't like overthrowing
All right.
constitutions.
so
All right,
what
so
I'm
let's-
trying to
let's check out.
suggest basically is that
Sure, counter-coup.
the
Please allow him
state
to make his point.
The
Yeah.
state claims that it has got substantive evidence about attempts to destabilize the state, which would include the presidency, the institutions, the constitution, and so on. But let's remember what Councillor Dawuda has been saying. You see what I mean? We cannot, discard or ignore what the council is saying. So I'm imagining the scenario in Ghana, 15 May aftermath, Colonel Eninfo sitting as the president of the court, for the state to present its evidence, for the defense counsel to now suggest otherwise.
Okay.
You see, so the fact that the state says that there has been an attempt, we've monitored them for 15 months, they had attacked, there are 700 members on their WhatsApp platform, they have manufactured, they have possessed illegally. I've even asked, as the senior minister, did those 2 persons in America, like J.H. Mensah, did they transfer funds? And the answer is that the people lost confidence in them because the funds were not coming. So there could be a situation where the evidence is presented,
All right.
but defense counsel can argue against the evidence.
Right.
I'm not challenging.
I'm waiting for the day in court.
All right.
As
Well,
for-
that's what
as
we're
for
all
the
waiting
defense
to
Secondly,
counsel,
we should all wait for
But
the day
otherwise,
in court.
we should all be concerned.
Yeah, so we can end this here and then take our next break and then return to go to the next issue. 30 seconds. What do you want to say? You are the Attorney General, so we should
Something he
hear
has
you.
said about Adawudu. You stated that.
Yeah, he's a lawyer
I've
for
only
them.
heard it.
I was with him on another platform this morning. I mean, did you expect him to say anything different?
Because he's defense counsel.
I
No,
mean,
but I can tell you one thing.
Then it is equally correct
cannot
to also
answer
not
this
expect you to say
No,
anything
I agree,
different.
but I don't think his client
Right.
has been honest with him.
Okay.
no.
And he doesn't have the lawyer. No, if you must open up to your lawyer.
Because his denials are
You must open up. Don't embarrass your lawyer. Tell him everything.
You see, you are in a privileged position, but not at this point.
If the doctor is in hospital,
Right. So
should tell his lawyer
even when
everything.
you were talking about, you're referring to me and experiences in dealing with some of these cases, and very recent one that we had to deal with. You read in the Daily Guide about NDC hired mercenaries. They were white people from the Greece and one Ukrainian. And they were said to be hired mercenaries to do a number of things in the country. I'm sure people have not read beyond that date. Where is that story now? It's gone. We'll be right back.
Do you remember the 3
What you see is not what you get.
You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. I'll share with you some of the messages that you have brought to us as far as the two matters we have discussed are concerned. Okay, so where do I begin? Kofi Bento says, it's about quality control from ground up, not at the law school level alone. So echoing the point that Yunus Afuseni did mention. He says, Russia produces very few vehicles. Germany produces millions of cars. Germany, the mass producer, produces the best quality vehicles. What an example. And then one of the students who just passed, and it will be called to the bar, says that they just did not want to admit, and this is because in our year, we, those who got 50% and above, were few, and the pass mark came down to 45%. Thanks for your message. And a senior at the bar also says, I don't know why, you know, there's something about this thing and too many people will not want to be identified. So when you hear Yunus Afuseni, you hear Coup Asare and the rest, they are really bold and brave because too many don't want to be heard about it. When you hear Isankuma and the rest of them talking very boldly about it and publicly, it is because that is what they are made of. Now, this is asking the question that the Attorney General, do you know there are not more than 5? Okay, so he's asking again, do you know that legal aid has only 22 lawyers? Legal aid has only 22 lawyers. That is a sad situation that we must work to improve. Kwame Siedu-Sapon says, I am horrified at what the Deputy Attorney General is saying. Let me put some context on this. In this country, there are, is it 4,016 or so doctors with a doctor to population ratio of 1 doctor to 73,074. Is that what he says? Okay, I'm not too good with the figures. We all cry for doctors, so training has been expanded. Now Cape Coast, Tamale and Ho all train doctors, and now there is a private medical school. This situation pertains in most health-related fields. I understand there are just over 4,000 lawyers, meaning the lawyer to population ratio no different from that of doctors. It's about, you know, is it 8,000 or so per lawyer. Interestingly, the lawyers and judges are against expansion of legal training for more doctors. Has the increase in doctor numbers affected quality? To me, the jury is out. Cognitive dissonance, I call this. One of the students who also couldn't make it says that, she says, look, I studied for 3 years. I quit my job to fully concentrate on my studies because I know I had to dedicate my time to the path I had chosen. I performed very well with the LLB and I am examined on some few basic questions, only to be told I don't qualify to become a lawyer. CJ's talk about character, and I am only wondering, how have I been assessed on my character with the questions that I was asked during the entrance exam? Interesting there. Lawyer Opoku Ejay says that September 11 hijackers used box cutters, no guns, no explosives. Okay.
But that was treason. That was
thank you.
Terrorism. That was not subversion.
Right. Let me read this one. Nana Hesi Ojiri, he says that Kweku Bako just said that the CJ is too conservative. Why not? A profession that refers to 8 colleagues as learned friend. Why won't the profession be termed a conservative profession? Now, what led to the mass failure? What was it that the marking scheme was raised? Does it mean the lecturers are not well equipped or the students are the problem? Yes, the CJ is against mass production, but did the student pass and were intentionally failed? I'm only observing. Okay, Nana, thank you for your messages there. Now let's go to, I'll read your messages later on the coup matter. Let's start with Inusa Husseini. So, what is it that those of you who are against the white paper are talking about on the short commission? And last week I made a reference that the Constitution Review Commission, when it finished its work, the government accepted over 90%. And yet, some of us criticize the white paper so rambaciously. Yes. I remember my article on it. I titled it Cabinet Coup d'etat. So what is it about this white paper that too many people are so unhappy with?
Thank you so very much, Samson. Indeed, we don't have time, so I'm not going to give the facts of the case of the by-election which led to the establishment of the commission, because the facts are well known. So the report was submitted on the 14th of March, and by the constitutional injunction, the president had within 6 months to issue a report, and a white paper. Now the government has subsequently issued a white paper, and the white paper, with the greatest respect, is an exercise in dishonesty. The white paper has sought to supplant the commission by giving its side of the story. And you can see it even from the first opening paragraph of the white paper. Nowhere in the Commission of Inquiry report did they establish that the violence that took place at Ayowa's constituency was as a result of a press conference given by the chairman of the NDC and confirmed by Honorable Sam George. Nowhere. But look at the white paper. The opening paragraph. In the morning of 31st January 2019, barely a few hours after voting had commenced in the Ayowa's constituency by-election, following the death of Honorable Member of Parliament, Mr. Emmanuel Chermetena Jaku, the national chairman of the opposition NDC, Mr. Samuel Ofosu Ampofu, addressed a press conference where he alleged that the NDC parliamentary candidate and 6 party agents and accredited observers had been shot by the invisible forces who have been given national security uniform, resulting in serious injuries. These men, according to the national chairman, and blah, 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 they say that these allegations, paragraph 2, these allegations which caused widespread national alarm and outrage led the president of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, to appoint a commission of inquiry. That's the white paper that is saying so.
Yeah, the white paper, is that not a view of government on the matter? Are they saying?
Just hold on. Just hold
That's the
on.
white people.
Yeah, are they saying that's what
The
the
white
commission
people is
said?
telling us.
Hold on. Let him finish.
The white people is telling us that it is because Samuel Ofoso Ampofo gave a press conference, which press conference led to violence.
No, I'm not sure.
But that's it. I'm reading from the white
No,
people.
please go.
I'm reading from the white people. I'm not reading from anywhere. Paragraph 2. No, you see, and because of that, I have gone back to the Constitution. And what is the white paper? What is a white paper? According to Black Law Dictionary, a white paper is a policy document. For our purposes, the white paper, which is by law under Article 2803, the president has to issue when publishing the report, is to give an indication of the standing of government in relation to the report. It is not intended. It is not intended to substitute for the report.
Yeah, I mean.
No. So, no. In fact, no matter what objections the government had to the findings of the Committee of Inquiry, those findings still stand by the Constitution. And Article 283 is clear. 283 is very clear on this matter. And so any adverse finding made against anybody, irrespective of the fact that the white people have said, no, we don't agree, does not operate to remedy or overturn the findings of adverse findings made against the person. That is the Constitution.
Okay.
And it's stated. So you go to 3. The president shall, subject to clause 4 of this article, cause to be published the report of a commission of inquiry together with a white paper on it within 6 months after the date of the submission of the report by the commission. 4. Where the report of a commission of inquiry is not published, the president shall issue a statement to that effect, giving reasons why the report is not to be published. Look at 5. A finding of a commission of inquiry shall not have effect of a judgment of the higher court, as provided under clause 2 of this article, unless 1. 6 months has passed after the finding is made and announced to the public, or B. the government issues a statement in the Gazette or in the national media that it does not intend to issue the white paper on the report of the commission, whichever is earlier. When does your right accrue to challenge the findings? Your right to accrue to challenge the findings, irrespective of A or B, is the right to appeal conferred on clause 2 of this article on a person against whom a finding has been made, shall be exercised within 3 months after the occurrence of either of the events described in clause 5. That is, the government has published the report in the white paper, or the government has refused to publish the white paper. That is when you're right. So it means that the findings in the report, irrespective of a publication of a white paper or not, stands. And your right to challenge the findings accrues 3 months after the publication or otherwise. In this case, 3 months after the publication, your right to challenge the findings is established. So no matter what they have said here, to all intents and purposes, it gives us government stance on the Commission of Inquiry. But what is more worrying is government's attempt in its white paper to attack the integrity of the commissioners. Government is saying in this white paper that the commissioners failed to appreciate the import of the terms of reference that was given to them. It is because, in its view, that the commissioners failed to appreciate the import of the terms of reference and the remit of the terms of reference. That's why they failed to address their mind to the role played by Samuel Ofoso Ampofo. That's what government is saying in this white paper. And that's why they have brought it in. In fact, when you read this white paper as a lawyer, you come to the conclusion that what government has sought to do is to use this white paper as an appeal over the findings of the Commission of Inquiry and set up the appeal and exonerate the persons, constitute themselves into a judge and a jury, or if you want in the ordinary man's words, a clearer agent. This is what people have sought to do. And that is what is more...
Let's understand something. And law practitioner and teacher Justice Stramsai wrote this. I want to I want to read it to you and then find out if that is your position.
Okay.
And then Penka will also tell us if this is an accurate position.
Okay.
He says, Justice Stramsai, he teaches the law at GIMPA. He says, the president seems to have mistaken the Short Commission for one of his numerous investigative committees that he often sets up in his office. By way of a reminder, a commission of inquiry is a constitutional judicial body whose adverse findings against individuals, when published, apply as a court judgment. This on the face, we all know this. Indeed, the law allows the president to reject the recommendations of a commission of inquiry. In doing so, the president may, through a white paper, give reasons. What the president has done in the Short case, however, is profusely confuse a recommendation with a finding. A finding is a product of a judicial process. It derives from the judicial power that the Constitution confers on the Commission. A recommendation, on the other hand, is what the Commission entreats the President to do with its findings. A recommendation is therefore merely political, not judicial. Being political, the President can reject a recommendation and then give a policy reason for doing so. What the President is not entitled to do, however, is to constitute himself into an appellate judicial body over the Commission, reviewing the merits of its findings or reversing them. There are two reasons for this, and he gives them very shortly. One, the Commission, as I've already said, is a quasi-judicial constitutional body whose adverse findings against individuals are judicial in nature. The President has no authority to exercise judicial power, let alone a final one in this regard. Two, the Constitution expressly reserves such appellate judicial powers for the Court of Appeal, not the President.
Exactly.
He seems to suggest that the President has committed an anathema, a sin that cannot be forgiven.
Forgive at all. It's an egregious violation of the tenets of the Constitution. Look at 281. The Commission of Inquiry shall make a full, faithful, and impartial inquiry into any matter specified in the instrument of appointment. In this particular case, C111. Report in writing the result of the inquiry, and C, furnish in the report the reasons leading to the conclusions stated in the report.
Okay.
So recommendations, yes, they are up for recommendations. Government can reject the recommendations, but he cannot reject a finding of fact.
So
and he cannot reject it because...
Question now is what should be done or what ought to be done. There are groups that are asking he should withdraw the white paper and actually giving deadlines to the president.
To be honest with you, Samson, when I was reading the white paper, I was tempted to believe that this was not a white paper originating from the Attorney General's office until I finished reading the paper and I saw the Attorney General's signature. Because you can't by the white paper, constitute yourself into an...
What should be done? Let's move forward. What can be done or what should be done to cure the problem you say you have identified with the white paper?
Well, so the president could... I don't know what can be done now that there's no precedent. You see, if the president, you see, this white paper, again, reading it, I thought the president, if he had these feelings, should have exercised the second option.
Which is?
Not issuing a white paper.
Not issuing a white paper?
Yes.
Okay. Right, so, Panka, briefly, I needed to go to Kweku before you, but because of the legal aspect of it that has come in, what is your position on this? And some have asked the question, what exactly is government fighting in this white paper? What are you fighting? Because it does appear that the Emil Short Commission's focus concern and interest was to secure an improvement in our security, our collective security. And they say it in the opening paragraph, page 6.
Page 6.
They say so. But it does appear the government is looking for a certain parochial interest to protect. What is it?
Thank you very much. And let me begin by saying that it is not true that government has certain parochial interest that it seeks to protect. And I would start again by just looking at Wikipedia, and then we find out what's the meaning of a white paper.
Yeah.
And a white paper is an authoritative report or guide that informs readers concisely about a complex issue and presents the issuing body's philosophy on the matter.
Yeah.
So what the president did was his philosophy on the matter.
Yes, his policy statement.
Sorry, don't intervene. Yeah.
Okay, that was his philosophy on the matter, and it's for you to either agree or disagree. That's all. He's entitled to what he did.
Is he entitled to seek to challenge the findings, which are findings of a high court?
Yes. You see, if for example they found out something as a matter of fact, and in their own conclusions there's a contradiction which the president points out, what does he do? He should leave it? No. You see, there are quite a number of things here. If you read the three that he spoke about, Honorable Hussein spoke about, it says that the president shall, subject to clause 4 of this article, cause to be published the report of the Commission of Inquiry together with the white paper on it within 6 months. The president has done that. He has published it with the white paper.
Yeah.
And it is the white paper that you are critiquing. But the point is that the white paper is a reflection of his philosophy on the matter, which is what I have said. And once it's a reflection of his philosophy on the matter, you can do a critique. But the fundamental thing is whether or not it was within his right to do what he did.
The law lecturer says, do you agree or disagree? Says the recommendations are of a political nature. You can deal with them however you want. But the findings of facts, especially adverse findings, you have no right to tamper with them because of what the Constitution says. That it is only in the Court of Appeal that you can go and deal with them.
Yes, but as you see, the findings of fact, as you have indicated, if also you have some findings of fact by the Commission, which are clearly stated, and on the next leg, an action by the Commission contradicts that finding of fact they made, it should not be allowed to go. You have to comment on it in the white paper. You see,
where are you supposed to challenge it?
Something, hold on.
If you have a challenge to that, where do you do it? Do you do it with a white paper or in the courtroom?
You see, it is not for government to go to court to challenge that.
Okay.
Hold on. You see, you remember that in reading, I don't want to repeat it, it's now become boring. In reading, he stated clearly that those who are affected have the right to go to court to challenge it. You know, you even know that there's even something that I think we've not looked at it in detail, whether or not the findings of the Commission of Inquiry can be the basis to prosecute a person who appeared before them. Has that not been settled? Yes, but even there, that was one thing I wanted us to come to.
Again, that's a High Court decision.
Yes, why were we recommending that persons who appeared before the commission should be prosecuted?
Yeah, but not on the stated facts, to be prosecuted.
You know, so, hold on. You see, if you appeared before them and you gave evidence, testimony, and then on the basis of which you are recommended for prosecution, Justice Mahfoud Sow's decision will catch you.
That's a High Court decision.
Yes, but you see, what is the law as we speak? Is there any pronouncement on that matter by the Supreme Court?
No.
So the High Court becomes then the authoritative pronouncement on the matter as of now. And you are aware of that. Most of us thought that if people wanted to challenge it, they should have gone higher for us to find out whether what Justice Mahfoud Sow, JSC as he is now, whether his pronouncement at the time could have been reviewed. But as it stands now, that's the law.
They aborted the appeal themselves.
Yes,
no, but that's the law.
That's the law.
Even in that's the law.
Yeah, so if that is the law, then even you find that even some of the recommendations.
So see, the point he's making here is that the commission recommended prosecutions. It should not have been recommending prosecution. That's what you are saying.
About those specific persons who
because that's what your white paper says.
Yes.
Okay.
Otherwise, it will die in the face of the in the Republic versus Kwadwo Mpieni and
okay. Now let's hear from Kweku. The question people are asking is really, what's the government fighting when they make recommendations for the improvement of the security architecture, from the top to the bottom, particularly national security establishment. Then, even before they do that, they predicate their findings on, they said, are broadly predicated on the need to put the country's security architecture and future electoral governance on a more stable footing in view of their centrality to the sustainability of Ghana's democracy. They talk about vigilantism and how to fight it. When they talk about the security architecture, the white paper says, oh, they do these things in accordance with law and in the constitution, so forget it. Militia, this is how we are supposed to deal with it. They say we don't agree with use of militia, and even vigilante, what you are recommending has been overtaken by a law the president has. Is that the way to approach it?
You know, I wonder what really the issues are. The principle. Does the Constitution enable the executive, in this case the president, who is the recipient of the report, does it enable him to express an opinion on the matter?
Yes.
It does. What have been the precedents too? I've been going through white papers of the previous commissions of inquiry. And I see the same thing. Some findings were rejected, some recommendations were accepted and also rejected. But that's just a sign is educating. And I say so because I like that the extension about you can't reject findings, but you can reject recommendations. But throughout my study, and it's not yet conclusive, I've seen white papers that have rejected some findings. Even the Ghana, the blaster,
committee.
Yeah.
There was no finding that was rejected.
Oh,
I just read it entirely before I came
please,
here. Unless you
please,
can point to one.
go and check it.
I've just read the finding. There's one finding that was
findings
rejected
were made
on the basis of the fact that it was inconsistent with law.
See,
So you have to provide that this finding cannot be established by law.
But you have challenged. But you've confirmed the point. No. If it's finding, it's finding. Then leave it.
Thank you. We have very limited time.
So you've just confirmed it. Go and check the Constitutional Review Commission report and the white paper. They rejected some. The idea to make even the National Media Commission rather the source of giving frequency allocation and things were in there. Government rejected it and said no, it should remain within the domain of the National Communications
That's a recommendation.
Authority. Okay? There are many. I personally, sitting here, have reservations about the government position on the criminal assault against Sam George. I have a serious problem with that. I thought they should have accepted it. They should have allowed that thing to go to court. But I asked myself, even that comment, does it stop it from going to court based on the Mafusai judgment? It doesn't.
Yeah.
So perhaps it's a futile
exercise.
Yeah, I agree. Also, I'll be honest with you, the point about taking out the SWAT team, a standing force from national security sector, I wanted it done. They should take them out. And I brought here, look, the Constituent Assembly of 1969, 68, 69, those proposals were made. And they were looking at Nkrumah's era and saying that Nkrumah created those some standing forces and things, some of which Colonel had alluded to earlier. And they felt that we should not replicate the thing in the 1969 era, 1979 era. But look at us, in the Fourth Republic, we've brought what we say Nkrumah did wrong.
CSO leaders have been talking to me, and what they are concerned about is that, as far as they are concerned, the recommendations about improving the security architecture of the national security, the chain of command, and the question of vigilantism. Government can reject militia. The question of vigilantism. The manner in which the government went about rejecting those things, they are concerned because they feel that that is our collective security, and it is the reason you set up the commission.
Yeah, but that one, I'm a bit confused there. Right. The vigilantism, the act.
Yeah, they simply told them that it's been overtaken by the act.
But are you suggesting this is not a cure for the perceived threats that the vigilantes pose? Is there something wrong with this? Do we need to improve on it? The act, I mean. Do we? You were in Parliament. So then that point government is making is plausible.
Okay.
It's plausible.
All right.
Because if this is enough cure for it now, then we shouldn't be making a case.
This is about punishing wrongs when they are committed.
Yes.
Here, they are talking about steps to take.
To do what?
Internally in the structures.
Yeah, so then you are not talking
some of the
so
things.
then you are not talking vigilantism.
Yeah.
It's part of it. The recommendations of
no, but I mean then they got it wrong. Because unless we are telling ourselves now that this is insufficient. And if this is insufficient, then we should be improving on it. That's the point I'm making.
This does not speak about reforming institutions and things. This is only a law to punish if you commit a wrong.
Yep, so don't bring in the vigilantism.
They as a commission's purpose also, we know, we have been told, is for reform. So why do you reject the reforms?
Yeah, but then don't mix it. Don't mix it with the cure for vigilantism. Don't mix it, because we have this legislation here, unless we think it's insufficient. And if it's so, then let's go and make it stronger.
All right, thank you. We've run out of time, but in a minute, what can you say about...
In natural fact, you shouldn't have made me speak. You should have made all right.
I'm like the last bomb. Now, my fundamental issue with this report, I think, has been captured by the Honorable Minister. But I have used the word. The impression I have is that the government has rubbished.
When you say minister, who are you referring to?
The former minister. Sorry, the former minister.
Okay. He's been promoted.
The white paper
yeah, so he's got only a minute.
Appears like rubbishing the AWW report. And fundamentally because I find it a bit disingenuous that the white paper should start on page 1 in paragraphs 1 and 2 by trying to establish causality with the statement by the party chairman. Now I've been asking myself, was that one of the terms of reference? Because broadly speaking, maybe yes. But let's remember that the government had authorized through its structures a security operation which went either A or B directions.
Okay.
So the government ought to pronounce itself on some aspects of that operation, i.e. that actionable intelligence.
Okay.
Was there any the whole idea of this national security architecture, its command and control, and what I fear most in studies around coup, the syndrome of two armies.
Okay, we have run out of time. I'm very sorry. This is where we draw the curtains, and thank you all very much for keeping your dials on Joy 99.7 FM and our affiliate stations across the country and also on television. And one senior lawyer says that I should tell all of you that coup is a crime, and that a successful coup is not a crime. Once the coup is successful, it is not a crime. All right, my guests have been Abdul Malik Kwekuba, co-editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, Colonel, retired Festus Abuaje, author and conflict analyst. Joseph Dindiok Penka is MP Timpani and Deputy Attorney General. Inusa Fuseni is MP Tamale Central. My outfit, as always, is by Latida. And the point is that no successful coup is a crime.
But
Thank you.